Thank you, Melanie. Well, good afternoon, everyone, and huge thanks for the opportunity to speak with you today. It's really lovely looking around the screen to see so many familiar faces as well. Let me start by taking this opportunity to extend huge thanks to the Quaker community who've been so supportive of our work over many years, and it's indeed largely because of the Quaker belief in the efficacy of circles of support and accountability that the model was introduced in the UK some 20 years ago. And I know there are some individuals here who were directly involved in that. So you probably know a lot more than me. I know that some of you are either current or former volunteers, but for those of you that are less familiar, I'd like to take a couple of minutes to show you a short visual explaining how circles work. So if you can give me a second, I'm just going to share my screen and share a short film with you. So over the last year, we have had to really carefully navigate our new environment, as has everyone. But we've creatively adapted to COVID secure service delivery, whilst taking care to safeguard, of course, the health and safety of our core members, our volunteers and our staff. So during the first lockdown, this actually meant that all our circles met via Zoom, wherever practical. We're fairly familiar with Zoom now. But this, of course, isn't possible for all our core members. Some don't have the technology, some don't have the internet access, some don't have the finances to access video conferencing facilities. But for others, privacy was a real issue. For example, if somebody's in an AP, they don't want their peers, the other residents, to overhear what they're saying within their circle. So this unfortunately meant that some circles were temporarily suspended, but we of course offered telephone support for the interim. Since July last year, though, we have gradually re-established COVID secure face-to-face meetings for many of our circles in the southwest. And whilst the weather was okay, many circles met outdoors, park or went for a walk. But during the winter months, of course, that's been much more challenging. And not least as all meeting venues have had to be COVID risk assessed. And that included, of course, their suitability for 2-metre social distancing. So where there are COVID vulnerable circle members, and that includes the volunteers and core members, those circles have continued to meet via Zoom. And we've also introduced a blended model whereby COVID vulnerable individuals join via video link so that they are able to meet together in a room as a circle. The desire from core members and volunteers and staff to do everything possible to maintain safe service delivery has been quite remarkable. And there have been some quite creative activities in some circles. You may have read Jennifer's article in the most recent Quakers in Criminal Justice newsletter, which talks about the challenge of 2-metre distance games. One of the most important roles, of course, for the circles during this period has been providing a social network and the emotional support, as the pandemic, of course, has compounded the isolation and loneliness of our core members that they already experience. Late last year, Circles Europe produced a research report on the impact of the pandemic on circles, involving responses from 16 providers across 8 countries. Unsurprisingly, the report highlights that core members need focused additional support in times of lockdown, as the resulting isolation is likely to negatively impact on their mental health and well-being. It also recommended that there will probably need to be additional research and investment in new variations of the Circles model to navigate the times ahead. And as you can see from the quotes on the second half of this slide, our Circle Southwest volunteers told us that although definitely valuable, with the video conference model, it is more challenging to get some of the more deep-seated issues relating to accountability, which of course is a critical component of the Circles model. So I'm going to share with you in a moment some of the new developments in the world of Circles. But first, a whistle-stop tour of some of the latest research findings on core member outcomes, which I hope will give you hope. Some of you will be familiar with the evidence base for Circles. A recent example is the 2018 published research by Dewey, who undertook a randomised control trial in Minnesota studying 50 Circle participants matched with 50 people in a control group. He found an 88% reduction in the risk of rearrest for a new sexual offence and significant reductions across measures for general recidivism. We're pleased to have been able to add to the growing body of persuasive research about the efficacy of Circles, with 2 significant UK evaluations published in 2020. The first one is from Nottingham Trent University. They reported last year on a 4-year evaluation of 188 circles in England. They found statistically significant reductions in the dynamic risk scores and an improvement in the protective factors. They also found at the 9-month stage, core members show a marked improvement in their emotional well-being, a factor which of course we know is linked to reoffending. Research in practice has found similarly encouraging outcomes in relation to 85 circles coordinated by Circles Southwest. Their research also highlights the statistically significant impact of circles in reducing the dynamic risk factors associated with sexual recidivism over the life of a circle. And they most recently reported the outcomes on this slide for core members between the start and end of their circles. Their report concludes, circles of support and accountability are an important part of a community-led, strengths-based and restorative approach to reducing the risk of sexual abuse. So now on to a whistle-stop tour of newer developments in the world of Circles. Firstly, Circles Reboot. This is a new national pilot programme that provides a variation on the traditional Circles model, specifically for people who've been convicted of online offences involving indecent images of children, who are assessed as low to medium risk of harm. It's a shorter, more structured 12-session circle, which is delivered over 6 months, and the programme is being evaluated by Online Protect at Lincoln University. You're probably already familiar with Circles for people with intellectual disabilities and our Prison Through the Gate circles, both of which have been around for a little while now. Fellowship circles are a brand new initiative in partnership with the Catholic Church, where both the core member and the volunteers are drawn from a specific congregation's membership. So I'm going to move on now to young people circles, because at least a third of all sexual offences we know are committed by young people against young people. So our circles for young people provide a trauma-informed approach that focuses on improving safeguarding and preventing an escalation of the young person's harmful sexual behaviour. In response to demand, Circle Southwest has actually recently secured funding to adapt the model for children as young as 10 years old. Unsurprisingly, perhaps, the majority of the young people with whom we work are children in care or care leavers. And last year, this cohort accounted for around 60 to 65% of the young people with whom we provided circles. Many of them have been involved in harmful sexual behaviour within the family unit. And in acknowledgement of this work, Circle Southwest has recently received a Howard League Community Award commendation in the Children and Care and Care Leavers category. So with this in mind, I'd like to show you a short film about Circle Southwest's Young People Service.
Be Safe is a multi-agency, multidisciplinary service that works with children and young people where they have harmful sexual behaviour in their families through providing assessment, therapeutic intervention, and working alongside the professionals supporting them, so social workers, schools, parents, carers, and other key support people.
I came to be at Be Safe through HSB, so harmful sexual behaviour. Like, I committed more than one harmful sexual behaviour offence.
I came to be at Be Safe because of the sex nature between me and two of my siblings. It was wrong and had to be corrected. So I went through therapy and overcome sexual activities and moved on.
I first heard about circles through my Be Safe worker. It just came up in one of the meetings and he recommended it, and I was like, first I was like, okay, and then as soon as I signed the papers, it was, yeah, I didn't regret it.
In terms of circles, we thought it would be helpful to young people who are harmed sexually, as we saw some of the issues for them were around social isolation, which is seen as a significant risk factor for this group of young people. We saw as an opportunity for them to get support from some other safe adults in their life in a way that's very structured, assessed, and targeted at their needs. So I see it working on a couple of levels, really. One, in terms of young people who are partway through therapeutic intervention with our service, and maybe in foster placements, for example. And it's good for them to be able to relate to some other adults and not be totally reliant on their foster carers. And another way we've seen it work really well is young people who are moving on from our therapeutic intervention programs in terms of growing independence, but being supported to engage in a range of activities which may be educational or social, so they gain in confidence, but that's done in a safe way, that's got good assessment around it and good safety around it. So I see it as highly beneficial.
When I first met the volunteers, they were friendly faces. They came in, we had a couple of jokes, quite a few nice biscuits. Yeah, we got on well straight away.
I think on my circle now, I see it now pretty much like family, because we all like get along and like we chat, and it's a bit of fun just sit in the cafe. It's good. I enjoy our circles now.
The circle now is less of a circle and more of a friendship group. We meet up every week. We have a Coke and we just chat about the week and how it's gone.
It's nice to sit there and chat and play games and like not being judged.
The activities I've done with my circle, we've gone for meals out, we've been to crazy golf, we've been bowling, we've gone to cafes, and we've gone trampolining.
I think my circle has helped me in a way of like, it's helped develop my social skills. So it's not just the fun side of it, there is a serious side where you can chat about all the issues that's going on and stuff, and they understand it. They ain't gonna like choose a side, they're like neutral.
Circle has helped me with my confidence. So before I was with my circle, I wouldn't say hop on a bus by myself or go a mile to go to a cafe to meet up with people. It just helps with confidence and building friendships, I guess.
Going for the circle, it's a useful thing in life. It helps develop your social skills in ways you would not thought of. You'd be surprised.
I would definitely recommend circles to other people. If you're going for a rough patch in your life at the time you recommended circles, and you might think, oh God, no, I don't want to do another thing a week. But then you get into it, and it is fun because you have people you can talk to. The first time you do it, yeah, you might have a bit of nerves and you might be a bit, oh God, no. But then you get into it, and it is just like meeting up with a group of friends.
Just heard about circles from young people. The person I'm looking after was first referred to. He was having treatment with Be Safe, going through all his sexualised behaviour, and it was coming towards the end. He'd done a lot of work with, and circles came up as an option to carry on after the treatment at Be Safe. Interested in a young person from the start of the circle and now to almost at the end of it. Some are subtle, massive. His confidence, his self-confidence has grown a lot. His social skills have improved probably tenfold to what they were. More comfortable in social circles, he's more comfortable in going to new places, and no one's judging him, there's no one looking at him, there's no horns coming out of his head, no one can spot him. He is a normal person doing what everyone does, and he's starting to feel that. Nothing that can hold him back. Benefits for the circle, certainly on myself, is from dealing with children who were abused, realised that if I can help one child from re-abusing, I could be saving 20 of the children I normally look after from suffering. We've put nearly 15 months worth of immense effort into helping a child reintegrate really into society. He stands a chance now of being a normal part of society and actually being able to contribute, which I don't think he would have had it without them. And I've got nothing but respect for the work they've put in and all the volunteers. They are normal people doing an extraordinary thing.
Everybody out there is considering joining circles, I'd say absolutely go for it. You get really great training, so you feel really comfortable when you start your circle. And for me, it's been an incredibly positive experience. I'd highly recommend.
Young people who displayed sexually harmful behaviour need strong, secure adult role models in their lives. I think it's very good that they have adults that turn up every week, that are consistent, that can encourage them to try new things that they may not have had the opportunity to try before, and be good role models.
My advice for anyone considering doing volunteering for the circles is to go for it. It gives us a wonderful sense of fulfillment and purpose.
I just think it's a really important service for young people because it bridges that gap between, if you like, highly structured, highly supervised activities back out into the community, into breaking isolation. And one of the key factors in some young people's histories and risk factors around repeated harmful sexual behaviour is social isolation, lacking confidence. I think we forget that if you put someone on a very tight supervision plan, they may need help to come off that. Even though they might be saying they want to come off it, they may actually feel quite anxious about coming off that plan because they've had all this focus or attention. And at a very basic level, they've almost forgotten how to be independent. And that's one of the ironies of this work. While a young person is a teenager, they're getting more independent, and then we give them a really highly supervised safety plan or risk management plan. So we need to support them to come off that in a safe way, and I think Circles can contribute to that through what it offers.
So let's have first 5 minutes for Joe and then 5 minutes to Nigel, and then we're more or less on time. I think if Robert and co start a few minutes after 2:30, that's no problem. So is anybody, get back onto gallery view. Sue, you have a question for Joe?
Yes, one of the troublemakers, yeah. I hadn't realised how many young people. I go into a sex offender prison, but obviously not for young people, it's mostly older men. How many young people were involved? Do they still have to declare that they've committed a sexual offence? Because I know it's a big issue for the men leaving prison, especially some of the younger men that's in our group in the prison, that they've got to declare that. So they feel it's like a big thing around their neck. Does the same happen with young people?
Certainly, some of our young people will be on the sex offender register for life, and it will depend on the nature of the offence, whether they were actually convicted, because some of the young people we work with have not actually been convicted. They're referred to us through different sources rather than the criminal justice system. It will be through the health system. So they may not be convicted, although they may have, we know, and you know, they've admitted they may have committed an offence against, for example, a sibling. But yeah, certainly some of them will be on the sex offender register in the same way as adults.
Yeah.
Anything more to ask Joe? Ruth? Can you unmute Ruth and ask your question?
Thank you very much for that. That was very helpful. I was wondering what the financial situation for Circles is now. I have a friend who came out of prison about 2 years ago from after child sexual abuse offence, and was unable to access Circles because Thames Valley at that stage was not accepting any new referrals. And I wonder what things are like now.
Well, regrettably, there's a really mixed picture across England at the moment, and in many areas there aren't actually any Circle providers anymore. For example, the Midlands, I know with our previous speaker, there are no Circles provision in those areas at all. And it is different in different areas. Regrettably, as I think Melanie said before I started speaking, there was quite a big lobbying towards the government to encourage them, Probation, to continue to fund Circles a few years ago. Unfortunately, that didn't actually achieve what we'd hoped it would. So actually in the southwest, and that covers the 7 counties in the southwest, we have no probation funding at all for Circles. We do provide circles in all 7 counties, but it's very much supported by statutory funding is only through the Police and Crime Commissioners, all 5 of whom are very supportive in the South West. But that's limited, and it's matched with charitable and trust funding. So a huge amount of my time is spent on fundraising, and we hope that that will change. Nigel spoke about the Probation Services dynamic framework. We're qualified on that framework, and certainly some of our sister charity in the South East is, as well as is Circles UK and the Safer Living Foundation, which covers Nottinghamshire and Derbyshire. And obviously we can only hope that that will change in due course. And there may be, Nigel also mentioned, the kind of local commissioning arrangements between probation and the voluntary sector. And we would hope that that would give us opportunities as well. Unfortunately, however, we do have to say no to too many referrals coming forward.
Marion, do you have a question? I can't even see you on my screen, but
Okay. I've recently been approached by somebody in I can't remember the name of the prison near Bristol, a sex offenders prison.
HMP Ashfield
yes.
is the one you're
and really wanting restorative justice, which I don't know if it's available. But is would circles be available to somebody who's in prison, or is it just when they come out, or you know, could I direct him towards? How would I direct him towards you?
He could certainly get in touch with us. I can send you our contact details. The difficulty we have, I mean, to answer the first part of your question, we do have prison and through the gate circles. So that's where a circle starts 3 to 6 months pre-release, and then supports the person through the gate and on into the community for another 12 months. Obviously, at the moment, that the in-prison aspect of those circles is very limited and suspended in most cases. We do have some video conferencing arrangements with some men in prisons, but we haven't started new circles in prison during the pandemic, because obviously we need to go and assess them, and the volunteers need to go and meet them. We do work with Ashfield and HMP The Verne, which is obviously the other exclusive sex offender prison in the southwest, which is in Dorset, but it's the funding that will be limited. So we have some funding from the bid lottery for prison circles. We're also supported by the RAIN Foundation, but funding is always an issue. So we generally ask for some statutory support on referral, either from probation or police. And I mean, we can only work with the funding we have. So if that person comes through and we have the funding and they're in the right area, that's fine. But it's a real, there is an issue with funding across the board.
Yes, I'd like to have the details to send to him.
Certainly.
I think given that 18.1 billion cost of reoffending and the cost of imprisonment, that the funding you need is a drop in the ocean compared with that. And just this lack of joined up thinking drives me completely distracted. I think we can take one more question to Joe, and then if there is one, if not, let's move forward to just 5 minutes of questions for Nigel. Any hands, or are we moving over to Nigel now?
I should just say, Melanie, in relation to the last presentation, I mean, I've always been a kind of fan of circles, really, because I think they fill a huge gap. This whole thing about people in the community and being supported, and it's not just about programs and treatment. There is an issue about the funding, and I know previously probation kind of pulled away from that because and that was again on the kind of cost end. But I do think that this new framework, I think it does lift the lid on another opportunity. And it's not just the probation funding, it's the fact that we are now working much more closely with PCC officers than ever we did before, certainly in the Midlands. So we have somebody who's actually based in a PCC's office. So that kind of joint commissioning, co-commissioning, I think are areas that we really need to look at.
we'd certainly welcome that. Thank you.
Yeah.